When you retire, you may get a chance to go to football heaven. This is football heaven.
Hey guys, welcome to the Mission Podcast. I'm your host, Jameer Howerton, and I'm super excited to kick off the new year, 2023, with my colleague, Jon Kendle. Jon, welcome to the Mission Podcast.
Jameer, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure sitting down with you, talking football, talking Hall of Fame, talking selection process. I mean, that's what we're here for, so really excited.
Jon, before we dive in and talk about the selection process, because news just broke here in Canton, Ohio about the 15 modern era finalists for this year's class. You actually, not only are you an archivist here at the Hall and vice president of the museum and all the operations, you're also a co-host on the Villages podcast.
Yeah, Football Heaven. You can find that anywhere you get your podcast or your vodcast. But my co-host, Joe Horrigan, former executive director here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and Aditi Kikabwala. And so we really dive deep into the stories surrounding pro football throughout its history. And it's really based around our collection here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So, we house over 40 million pages of documents, 6 million photographic images, close to 30,000 artifacts related not just to the history of the game, but really every player, coach, and contributor who built the game to what it is today. So we're always highlighting those artifacts, and then we're taking you on a deeper journey about the stories behind those artifacts. So a lot of fun, and we've just had a blast creating that.
Can't wait to see more of the show in 2023. It's been a great honor to work here on the Mission Podcast, as you know, where we celebrate the excellence of these greats of the game. We preserve their history, promote their values, and celebrate their excellence together. So to have two podcasts really diving in and talking about the Pro Football Hall of Famers are so unique, Jon.
Oh, it's great. And so every chance I get, I'm watching the Mission, and so I really appreciate you having me on today.
Well, Jon, let's dive in and talk about it. The 15 modern era finalists were announced this week. When you look at this list of the 15 greats to play the game, what jumps out to you?
Well, first and foremost, how we got here. I mean, the process, it is a year-round process, and when just as the class of 2022 was being enshrined here at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, we're already putting together information for the selection process for the class of 2023. And so, that happens, mid-July. We're getting ready for the enshrinement ceremony, but we're also in the archives and with our communications department and our Chief Content Officer who runs the selection process, Rich DeRozier. We're working very closely to gather information related to our senior nominees and our coach/contributor nominees, and those subcommittees meet early August, mid-August, to nominate those individuals. So this year we've got Chuck Howley, Joe Klecko, Ken Riley from our senior committee, and then we've got Don Coryell, our coach. And those individuals go right to the finals. So they're nominated by the subcommittee. They go into that final room along with these 15 modern era finalists. So then we've got our 129 nominees that come out in September, and we're developing content on each one of those individuals, and they can be nominated by our selectors, they can be nominated by football historians, they can be nominated by fans. And so we get those nominations in, we gather all the information for that preliminary list. That goes out to our 49-person selection committee, and then the selection committee then pairs that down from 129 all the way down to 25 semifinalists. And this year we had some ties in there, so we had 28 semifinalists, and then that was announced, I believe, on November 22nd. And then, just moments ago, we announced our 15 finalists for the modern era. And so this list is tremendous players. Really look forward to the final meeting where these individuals get their merits debated about who should be a part of the class of 2023.
Jon, I do not envy, and we got a chance to talk to one of the 49 selectors, Mr. Jared Bell, and I tell him every time, I do not envy your job at all. To go for, as you just said, go from 128 to 28 to 15, and I look at the 15 that are here. And Jon, one of the things that jumps out to me, of course, you look at the first eligibles, offensive lineman Joe Thomas, defensive back Darrell Revis, and defensive lineman Dwight Freeney. I mean, you look at those three players right there and you say, oh my God, Hall of Fame careers. But then you look at the other players there, TORRY HOLT, who we've been looking at, Andre Johnson, who's there from last year, and DEMARCUS WARE, who was there from last year, Jared Allen, who was there from a couple of years ago, and you scratch your head and go, can we just let all of them in?
Right. Yeah. It is not an easy job, and these selectors do not take it lightly. I can tell you that. We provide a lot of information. Hours and hours of research goes into putting together information on each one of these candidates. And then the selectors, they not only review all that information, but then they're out doing their own research as well. I mean, they're pulling scouts, they're doing interviews from players and coaches, and they're bringing all that information back together, bringing it to the room in that final meeting, and they're debating, and they're pulling out stats that they've uncovered, and people are criticizing that or debating this, and those are long meetings, and I'm sure those individuals, I mean, I'm exhausted just listening to them, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame doesn't have a say in who they elect. We are just there to administer the process, but they
Thank you, Jon. Can you say that again? Because I know you're an 18-year vet, and for the past 10 years, you've actually been a part of the support staff with the selection process. Yeah. But I know over your 18 years, you still get phone calls like, why didn't the Hall put this guy in? Why didn't, dude, so can you say that again, Jon?
Right, yeah. So we administer the process, but it is the selection committee, the selectors, those 49 individuals, they're selecting the class. And so, we're providing them as much detailed information as we can. We are running the meeting in terms of, hey, you've got a certain amount of time to talk about this individual, and we give a lot of leeway because there's a lot of debate and discussion happening, but we don't select the class. Those 49 individuals, they select the class, and it's a pretty grueling process. We've talked about it a little bit, leading up to this point. But once they get into that room, those 15 modern era finalists, the three seniors, and then the one coach this year, those three seniors and the one coach, Don Coryell, they're going to get into that room, they're going to be debated, and they're going to be voted on right away. And they have to get 80% positive vote to go into the class of 2023. Now, the room doesn't know whether or not those individuals got in or yet. Those votes are tallied and they're kept confidential. But then after that, then we go into the modern era candidates, and those individuals are debated, discussed. It gets pared down from 15 to 10. Then there's more open discussion, and then they get pared down from 10 to 5. Then there's more open discussion and debate. And then ultimately, when we get down to those 5, they are voted on individually, and they have to get 80% positive vote yes to be in the class. And so, it really is a very thorough process to get down to the class of 2023 this year. And to take you back to you were talking about the list and just these individuals' credentials. I think you mentioned the first year eligibles, guys like Dwight Freeney and Darrell Revis and Joe Thomas. I think I made some notes here that I find really interesting is Jared Allen is in his 3rd year of eligibility. He's been a finalist 3 years. Devin Hester, 2nd year of eligibility. He's been a finalist 2 years. Andre Johnson, 2nd year of eligibility, been a finalist 2 years. DeMarcus Ware, 2nd year of eligibility, been a finalist 2 years. Reggie Wayne, been a finalist 4 times. He's in his 4th year of eligibility. So there are some heavy hitters in this, that have been in the room, that have been discussed. And so, where does the selection committee fall this year on, whose time it is to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Jon, the one thing you mentioned that really strikes me is the fact that these 49 selectors, while they're debating amongst each other and they cast their vote, they still don't know who, say, for instance, Jameer voted for or Jon is voted for. And talk about the relationship with Ernst & Young and how they play a huge part in this selection process.
Yeah, so they're the ones that will be counting the ballots and making sure that all those ballots are secured and the votes are secured until the proper time that they need to be released. And they've really brought us into the modern era with the voting. Now all the voting is done electronic, and they don't have to handwrite a ballot and be concerned whether one slipped out or anything like that. They know exactly who voted. And can monitor that, and we can get the results, a lot quicker now than counting hand ballots there, like we did before. So they've just been incredible partners to work with, and really look forward to the future with them, because like I said, they've kind of brought us into the future with some of their technologies, and I think that's only going to increase in future years.
Jon, I have to ask on a personal note, because as I mentioned, for the past 10 years, you've been a part of this process. But if there's anything that you can share, one of your fondest memories of just being in a room or seeing something that you could share, and I understand there's a lot of confidentiality, so I don't want to, step over the line. But I just, because it's a huge process for football junkies out there that just, can we bring them inside? Yeah,
and I don't know that I could probably give you one or two things that I'm just so blessed to be a part of. But really just the process in general. I understand the magnitude of this, one, for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but two, for these individuals who ultimately get enshrined. I mean, like I mentioned, the selectors don't take this lightly, and they shouldn't, because these are life-changing moments for a lot of these individuals. And so I think from that standpoint, just understanding that I'm just one part of this process that ultimately changes lives. And that is something special. There's a lot of times I pinch myself working here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but being a part of the selection process and, being in the room, or for a lot of those years I wasn't in the room, so I was just, on the outskirts. But, you're seeing these football historians that you've grown up watching or reading or listening to them talk about the game, and now you see them in a different light discussing the merits of pro football players, coaches, and contributors in that field. It really is special.
How important is it that the fact that you have two Hall of Famers that's in that room, in James Lofton and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan Fouts?
Dan Fouts there, Bill Polian's a part of that now.
Yes, Bill Polian.
So there's a few more that we're bringing in that are members of the media as well. But yeah, I think it gives. It gives the Hall of Famers a bit of a voice in there as well, and I think they do bring a unique perspective, mainly because a guy like Bill Polian has evaluated talent for so long.
He's probably evaluated most of those guys.
Absolutely,
built dynasty on those guys.
Absolutely,
yeah.
and then guys like Dan Fouts, James Lofton, they know what a Pro Football Hall of Famer looks like.
Absolutely.
They've been not only that they are Pro Football Hall of Famers, but they've been in the Hall of Fame for years. They played with Hall of Famers. They coached with they've been coached by Hall of Famers. So they have a different perspective, and I always think that's good.
It's funny because I mentioned Jarrett Bell. He shared with me how when he puts together his list, he actually shares it with the likes of a Warren Sapp to get his, so like you're right, guys really take this to the next level and they really dive in because this is extremely serious.
Absolutely, very important, and like I said, they don't take it lightly, and that's rightfully so, and that's also one of the fun things to see how much work goes in and what the end results are, because like I mentioned before, you are changing lives. And so, when we're able to end up meeting with the class and you've seen the process all the way through and see what the end results are, it's special.
Jon, let's give our viewers and listeners just a quick snapshot. So we're in January now. So we're dealing with the selection process. Before you know it, Super Bowl's here, and then we find out who the class is. Take us through February, March, April, as we lead up to August, which will be here like tomorrow.
Right. It's a ton of fun. It really is. The class gets announced. They'll be brought up on stage at NFL Honors, and that's the first time that the world sees who the class of 2023 is for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And after that, then we have Sizing Saturday. So, the Saturday before the Super Bowl, we're meeting with the group. We're getting them measured for their bronze bust that will be on display here in Canton, Ohio at the Pro Football Hall of Fame for years and years and years to come. We are having them measured for their K. Jeweler Ring of Excellence. We're having them measured for their Hager Gold Jacket. And so those three icons, very important to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Famers. And so they're getting measured for all of those. We're sitting down, learning a little bit more about them and their families. They're getting to know a little bit more about us and our Pro Football Hall of Fame family. Then we have the Super Bowl. They usually are down on the field getting introduced, between one of the quarters. And then it's really setting up visits for each of the class of 2023 and their families to fly into Canton, Ohio, get a taste of what this community is about, which is a lot of football. People love football here. They get to go through the museum. I get to sit down with them from my perspective, talk about what it is the museum's trying to do, not just showcase their careers, but preserve their legacies for future generations of not just fans, but really their friends and their families. Their families can always come back here to Canton, Ohio, and know who that individual was, not just as a football player, but as a person. And so, sitting down with them, talking about what their collection looks like, how we can best tell their story in the museum.
And we see that collection downstairs in their private lockers.
Absolutely, yeah. We build a display around the new class every year, and so we're able to tell their stories. And I'm always pushing on the guys or the individuals to think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
What are some unique items related to your journey that can help us tell your story? Jerseys are great, helmets are great, footballs are great. Love those things. I'm not trying to diminish anything, but when you talk about a guy like Bryant Young, class of 2022, and talking with him, he was comeback player of the year, had a devastating leg injury. Most people thought it was a career-ending injury, but no, he fought back, still had a great Hall of Fame career the rest of his career with the 49ers. He comes back to me and goes, "Hey, I thought about what you said, about unique items in the Pro Football Hall of Fame." He's like, "I've still got the screws from my leg when they repaired it." He goes, I'm going to donate those to you. So working on getting Bryant's screws, donated to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So unique things like that, like I said, it showcases the pain and the sacrifice that he had to go through to become a Pro Football Hall of Famer on the field. So
great stuff, Jon. Well, and from a broadcast media standpoint, we get to host these guys here on the Mission, and we get a chance to talk to the people who they had selected to present them. Because not only do you can Google and you can go to NFL.com and you can read about the stats and you can go to NFL Films and watch the highlight reels, but to really sit down and talk with these guys, to learn about their game for life, to learn about the lessons, the valuable lessons that they've taken away from this game and they carry with them today, really resonates to our storytelling here at the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Absolutely. And they really become ingrained in our community. And then, we then, from the Pro Football Hall of Fame standpoint, how do we ingrain ourselves with the things that they're passionate about, and how do we help them, put a spotlight on the things that they're passionate. A lot of them have foundations and things of that nature. So how can the Pro Football Hall of Fame then help amplify those as well?
Well, we just gave you from January all the way to August. I'm sorry about that. I'm tired already, John, and we didn't even kick off the new year yet. Well, Jay, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us here to really give us a deep perspective of what's going on and what's coming down the pike.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate it and look forward to hopping on with you again soon.
For Jon Kendle, I'm Jameer Howerton. Thank you for joining us right here on The Mission.